This is Big Podcast.
It's Build a Big Podcast, the marketing podcast for podcasters. David Hooper with you. This is a podcast about making a podcast people care about, building a connection with the audience that you've got, and growing the audience that you want. This episode, it's about podcasting over Christmas and New Year's. Should you do it? We're going to talk about that. First, I want to say this. I'm in the middle of a 4-part series on how you can build a podcast that gets attention of podcast networks and also radio broadcast companies. Just to be real clear, this is not part of that. Parts 1 and 2, they are available now. They are in the feed. Parts 3 and 4 are coming in the next few days. I've got a Big Podcast Insider episode coming next. But I got the content, putting it together. You're going to like it. If you want this entire series, this is the best way for you to get it. It's bigpodcast.com/subscribe. That will make sure that you get everything. Like I said, the first 2 already there. This is something I'm doing with Jay Klaus. He's got a huge podcast called Creative Elements, just got picked up by HubSpot Podcast Network. I thought, why not bring Jay on and talk about real in the trenches stuff of how he made that happen. If you want that story, if you want to know how you can make it happen, bigpodcast.com/subscribe. That will make sure you get all of it. This episode, something very important. I mentioned the Big Podcast Insider newsletter. In the latest edition, I wrote about this. You might have seen it, newsletter.bigpodcast.com for that. It's an important topic. It can't wait. So I wanted to get it out today. First reason why you may or may not want to do a podcast during the holiday season, it's that your listeners are busy with holiday things and they will not have time to listen to your podcast. With that said, that second reason, your listeners are likely to have more downtime than normal. And because of that, they're more likely to listen to your podcast. But there's a third thing that I wanted to talk about here on this episode. This is something that I didn't go into in the email newsletter because this is a little bit more important. It's a little bit deeper. And I thought this is something that's better for the podcast itself, not the newsletter. I'm going to get to that here in a second. I'm going to preface it by saying this. If you want to take a break from publishing your podcast during certain holidays, by all means do. But also keep in mind that because a lot of podcasters are taking breaks from publishing, and many listeners do have extra time around the holidays to listen to podcasts, maybe a commute to go see the family, maybe they're just not working, they've got more time to listen to a podcast, you are going to have an increased shot at your podcast being consumed if there are fewer other podcasts being released. So that's an advantage for you to continue to publish during the holidays. Either option, whether you continue to publish or you decide to take a break, that's great. I wouldn't fault you for taking a break, especially at this time of year. Also, if you want to keep going, we live in a big world. There are lots of holidays. Many of them aren't celebrated everywhere, even though they might be celebrated where you are. So there's opportunity there as well. But to take it back to the third reason, something why you might want to continue to publish over the holidays, sometimes your podcast is a lifeline. It's something that keeps your listeners connected to people who are like them, the people who understand them, the people who accept them. People always talk about being alone for the holidays, and that's definitely an issue. People are lonely during the holidays. There's a lot of depression. Sometimes all our friends are busy. We're not. We feel left alone. But on the flip side of this, something I don't hear a lot of people talking about, some people, they're in situations where they feel a sense of obligation to spend the holiday with people where they can't be themselves. And I'll give you an example. I was spending Christmas with my extended family one year. This is maybe, I don't know, it could have been 25 years ago. I feel like I was a teenager at this time. We got maybe 30 people around the tree. And my uncle starts telling racist jokes, specifically jokes about Mexicans, dark-skinned people. And I had to stop Christmas. We're getting ready to open up presents. Whoa, hold it. Hold up. Where was Jesus born? And one of my cousins, little cousin, he says, Bethlehem. And what color are the people in Bethlehem? Kind of stumped them. They were used to seeing the white Jesus, with blue eyes and blonde hair. Anyway, I made the point. Don't be talking about people because you don't like the color of their skin. You're talking about Jesus. And if we're here to celebrate Christmas, the birth of somebody with dark skin, maybe we need to keep that in mind. And we went on and it was fine. But I want you to imagine a situation like that. Maybe you're gay, trans, whatever. And you got people in your family talking about you. That happens. Maybe you got a tattoo in a place that nobody's seen it. And you got a family member who says, oh man, I hate these guys with tattoos. You know, sometimes we are different around our friends and the people who really know us than we are around our family. And maybe we don't even like our families, but for whatever reason, we feel obligated to spend time with them. But a podcast, that's something you can listen to in private. So you've got all these people that you don't connect with, and then through a podcast, you've got people that you do connect with. And having something like that available in a crazy, stressful time, that can be helpful. So I want you to consider that as a podcaster. Not everybody is taking time off. And even the people who are taking time off, a lot of them are feeling alone, even if they have people around them. So by all means, if you want to get a podcast out, do it. It may be one of the more important episodes that you do this year. Related, I want to let you know about a podcast. It's specifically for U.S. military veterans. And not to go too deep into this, but we've got a real issue here in the United States of we use these guys to serve in the military, and then for whatever reason, they're not really supported. They kind of get passed to the side. There's a guy who's trying to change that, Richard Chelson. He's got a podcast called Veterans Day Room. He's trying to make sure that U.S. military vets are getting the benefits that they need. Our government is not perfect about taking care of vets, but there are a lot of great benefits, a lot of them simply unrealized by the people who have been in the military. Richard is helping these guys make sure that they get the benefits that they are owed and that are available to them. So if you're interested in that yourself, if you know somebody who might benefit, this is a podcast. It is called Veterans Day Room. You can look it up. Veterans Day Room. Remember that. It's a very helpful podcast for making sure that veterans get the help that they need. And this is especially important during the holiday season, why I'm bringing this up. You know about this. Several veterans every day are committing suicide. There are a lot of reasons for that. Loneliness, not being understood, the things that I'm talking about here, the things that your listeners may be going through. Regardless, there's some services to help this. Richard Chelson, he's doing a good job of getting the word out about this. Veterans Day Room. Look that up. I'll have everything linked in the episode notes. Thank you for listening. This isn't the last episode of the year, but I am kind of wrapping the year up. And I do appreciate you sticking it out with me this year. I've got some big things coming up in the new year. If you want to make sure that you don't miss it, here's how to subscribe. bigpodcast.com/subscribe. It's real easy. Go to bigpodcast.com/subscribe. I've got a button for you depending on what type of phone that you use, how you listen to the podcast. If you got an iPhone, got a button for you. Android device, got a button for you. You want an RSS feed? I got a button for that. And I've got a QR code. You can scan it. It instantly takes Build a Big Podcast to your phone. You can take me to the gym. You can take me on the commute. You can listen to me while you're with your family. Conversation gets a little bit dull. Racist uncle comes out. It's like, woo, I don't want to hear about this anymore. I want to hear about podcasting. Well, I'll be there for you. bigpodcast.com/subscribe. I appreciate you. Thanks for hanging out with me this year. Got some big stuff coming in the new year, like I said. And I'll see you on the next episode of Build a Big Podcast.